Good evening, everyone. It is 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, July the 11th, and today is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Macomb Township Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Aaron Tuckfield. I am the chairman, and I am calling this meeting to order. Our second item on our agenda tonight is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand with me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Mr. DeBruin, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Mazzara.
Here.
Mr. Piper.
Here.
Mr. Tuckfield.
Here.
Mr. DeCoster.
Here.
Mr. DeBruin is here. Everyone present.
All right, thank you, sir. That takes us on to the addressing conflicts of interest, which is item number 4. At this time, we're going to call the roll again. If any members has a conflict on any of the items tonight, please signify by saying yes, and if you have no conflicts, please signify by saying no. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Mr. DeCoster.
No.
Mr. DeBruin, no. Mr. Tuckfield.
No.
Mr. Piper.
No.
Mr. Mazzara.
No.
All right, that moves us on to item 5, which is the approval of the agenda. Is there any motions on this evening's agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. DeCoster. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Mazzara. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying nay. That motion carries, and tonight's agenda is adopted. Next is the approval of the previous meeting minutes. Those would be the minutes for June the 6th. Is there any motions on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to accept the meeting minutes from June 6th.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Piper, supported by Mr. DeBruin. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying nay. That motion carries, and the minutes are approved as read. Next item is 7, which is old business. I don't believe we have any old business this evening, so we're going to move on to item 8, which is new business. The first item under new business is item 8A, a variance request from about 5 different portions of the zoning ordinance with regards to permanent parcel 083U3 151006. Mr. Box, could you please take us through this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. As you mentioned, there are a number of variances requested. I'm going to go through them one by one. They're listed here, but I will go through them one by one so you can understand what is being asked of you this evening. But they are for the property, as you mentioned, along Romeo Plank Road on the east side, just south of 21 Mile, as you see on the map here. So the property is currently developed with utility infrastructure for consumers, and that is what they intend to do moving forward. It's 50 feet wide and 200 feet deep, so it's already a non-conforming lot by only being 50 feet wide. So the first variance request is to construct a building over some of their equipment that already exists on the property. I don't know, we'll defer to them when they get up there if there's going to be some new equipment added, but it's going to encase or enclose their existing equipment out there. But there are some required setbacks from the side yard of 25 feet. Well, as I mentioned, this is only a 50-foot wide parcel. So if you set back 25 from each side, you have nothing left. So they're asking for that to be reduced to 17 feet on one side and 19 feet on the other. Additionally, they want to construct a building over the same equipment that would be 31 feet from the rear property line. A 50-foot setback is the requirement. I'll walk through that a little bit more, but the equipment is already out there, so the placement of the building can't really be moved to 50 feet. They're not going to move that equipment. It's in the ground, so they're asking for it to be reduced to 31 feet. Another request is to enclose the property with a fence, privacy fence up to 8 feet. Right now, the standard is 6 feet of what's allowed with the township for a privacy fence. Again, I think the applicant will go through it, but there's some requirements for them for security reasons to have an 8-foot fence. So that's what they're seeking this evening. They also asked to enclose the property with this fence, but they're moving the fence off the property line on the east and the south by 3.5 feet. So we do allow fences to be 3.5 feet off the property line, but that's in cases of double fencing. This isn't a case of double fencing, so therefore it requires your approval this evening because the neighboring properties could in the future put a fence on the property line should they so choose to do so. So that we would require it to be 3.5 feet off, but because there isn't a double fence here, it requires your approval. And then lastly, allow fencing in the front yard is what they're seeking. As you see here in yellow, that area would be considered part of the front yard, which again, the ordinance typically wouldn't allow unless they are granted a variance. So most departments really had no comments on this. It wouldn't affect their operations or their processes within the township. Melissa and the planning department, we did look through this. Again, the 50-foot setback or 50-foot wide property would make it almost impossible to have a structure 25 feet off either side because again, there's nothing left. As I mentioned, to the rear yard setback, that equipment is already there. They're not moving that equipment, so 31 feet is, I think, reasonable for what they're trying to do. The request for the fence height for security measures, again, I think the applicant can explain some of that requirement when you speak with them, but understanding that that is a requirement for them, we think that's a reasonable ask. And then the proposed locations off the fence line, or off the property line, excuse me, the reason for that is there is a gate. If you can see my cursor here, there's a gate off the rear of this. So if there is a situation where there's an emergency, they want to have room for that person to be able to get out, but then still be able to get off the property without having to trespass on the neighboring properties. And then lastly, the fence in the front yard, as you see, there's other equipment that's in the front yard that also needs to be fenced in. That's one of their new requirements, so that's why they're seeking that. That being said, staff really has no objection to these variances, but we're able to answer any questions if you have them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Box. Is there any questions from the board for Mr. Box? Hearing none, I would see if the applicant's in the audience. If you are, please come forward to the center chair, state your name and address for the record, and give any comments you might have.
Good evening, Doug Scott from Rowe Professional Services Company, representing Consumers Energy. And Mr. Box did a great job of explaining what we're proposing, and really the fencing on that really becomes an issue with us as far as security. Consumers has to basically follow guidelines from Michigan Public Service Commission and the Transportation Safety Commission there as well. So that's really one of the big changes for this site. Basically what we're doing is reconstructing what is there, and there's, as Mr. Box mentioned, there's certain portions of it that have to remain where they're at, specifically the valves in the front yard there, and so those won't be touched. And so we have to have a fence out in front of that to basically be able to secure that. So I guess if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer those, but that's pretty much where we're at.
All right, very good. Any questions from the board to the petitioner?
I got a couple.
Go ahead.
So the guidelines you're talking about, are they statute, or who sets these guidelines?
Again, they're guidelines. And so basically, they're set by the Michigan Public Service Commission. Again, they are guidelines, they're not requirements, but basically for security purposes and stuff, they strive to adhere to all of those guidelines.
And part of those guidelines are the 8-foot instead of a
Yes.
6-foot fence.
Right.
So they're kind of a best practice.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. DeBruin. Any other questions?
The exit out the back of the property, what is that for again?
So obviously, it's a natural gas facility. And this, if you're not familiar with this site, what this site does is it has gas coming in the transmission line at a high pressure, reduces it down to distribution pressure so that they can regulate it out and serve the surrounding community and stuff with that. So because it is a natural gas facility, it's more of a safety thing. If something were to, they're back working in the building and something were to catch fire or whatever on that, it allows emergency egress out the back. So that, if there was a fire or something in the center of the site, they'd be able to exit out the back. And that's the reason for the 3.5, so that, not knowing, obviously, that area probably will be developed further in the future, we want the ability to be able to stay on our property and have an access route out for somebody to be able to escape.
And you would be comfortable with them running, leaving the property to the back, then to the south, and then back to the west? I mean, it seems like it's a longer route.
It is, but we have a similar gate on the front at the road there. So again, it's, you know, we looked at the ability to, you know, should we have something in the north? Should we have something in the south? And I guess, you know, we could add additional gates, but I guess from a standpoint, we know we want one in the back to be able to get out that way. And, you know, there's also, you know, the thought that the gas line continues to run that direction as well. So I mean, it could get out into that easement out there as well. But again, you know, not knowing that we don't have full control over that, we desire to be able to get out the 3.5 foot and make our way around. So
Obviously, if this is approved, you're willing to maintain a 3.5 foot stretch of
correct.
grass
Yes.
or whatever.
And what the plan is for that too, the site plan that was submitted and is in for review right now, is the area outside of that will be covered in crushed limestone, placed on a geotextile fabric and stuff to keep weeds down and everything. So
Thank you.
Any other questions? I did have a couple. You mentioned guidelines, so a couple of questions along those lines. Have you had it, do you know if there's been any, actually, let me ask one other question first. So this is an update to the facility or to the site. Is it substantially changing the equipment that's on the site, or updating it, or what's the scope of it?
completely updating it is what it comes down to. It's modernizing it so that consumers has the ability to remotely monitor the gas pressures and everything through that as well. And the building itself basically will enclose valves that currently are underground. Those will end up being above ground in that building so that they'll be able to work on those valves and stuff without having to be out in the elements.
So there is valves that would be buried, that would be non-accessible, that are now going to be accessible, is that accurate?
It's actually more of the being able to access them at usable heights and stuff, not being able to have to bend over. I'm trying to remember it's more ergonomics there as far as what it comes down to. So, you know, right now those valves are below grade and stuff like that, and so we want to be able to work on those above grade. So
Okay. Have you had any security incidents at this site that you're aware of?
I don't know that. Again, I'm a consultant for Consumers Energy, but as far as I guess I can't comment to that. So
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you. If there's no other comments or questions, I think I would open this up to the public. If there are any members of the public who'd like to speak on this request, please come forward to the podium over here, state your name and address for the record, and give any comments you might have.
Yes, my name is, well, I'm gonna use this, Counselor, and I'll use this for yours. My name is Bruce Nichols, and my family has owned the farm next door to this site. We sold them the property, and
If
the
you
reason
could,
it's
Mr.
50
Nichols,
feet.
just so I can make sure we have it, could you just state your address while you're?
Yes, 46300 Romeo Plank Road.
Very good, thank you, Mr.
It's
Nichols.
directly to the south of the parcel. The reason the parcel is 50 feet wide is they wanted a 100-foot parcel, but that would have come right up to the house. So we worked the deal out where it would be 50 feet and it'd be 100 feet long. Maybe it's more than that, but it was lengthy so they could get all this stuff in there. First of all, I get along great with, I like Consumers Power. We've done a number of things with them. There's a big gas line about it's about 24 inches underground that goes through along our property on an easement, and we've had to cross it for the subdivision to the north that is in process. And so they've been very cooperative, but this is the first time I have ever heard of this. And if I may approach, I'd like to give you just this letter that I sent to the, and I know Mr. Scott, that I sent to the planning commission. And it shows you the house, and I'm sure you're probably familiar with, it's got a big red barn.
thank you.
And I knew that now I remember why I had seen this letter. I sit on the planning commission as well, and I knew that we did get this, and I did read this, I believe, at our last meeting.
Oh, okay, well, great, I'll give you another copy, but I addressed this one to you, I didn't, I was a little confused in the procedure in that we go to the planning commission was adjourned, and then I assumed that this would be adjourned too, but I looked in the agenda today and found that it wasn't. From a standpoint of historic significance of that home, and I know you're all familiar with, everybody says they got an old place that's really historic. Well, this really is. It's built in 1888. It's a beautiful old farmhouse. It's been all restored. Everything up its top. I just put a new roof on the barn. I mean, it is really quite characteristic of Macomb Township. And this site that they had was originally, there's a letter on the back of this, you'll see, dated 1980 from consumers. The plan was take this parcel, put everything underground, and then landscape it. They said, great, no problem. We sold them the property. Well, the first thing that happened is they did landscape. It was beautiful. They had conifers all down the front of it, and it looked great. But then the people came in to spray arsenic on the crushed gravel, which of course washed off and killed all the conifers. So that didn't work out so good. So then they did it again, and they sprayed it again, and it killed it again. Okay, so I just sort of, as I say, I've tried to work with the consumers. They're nice people. And after that, the underground aspect of this system, which was supposed to be ground level, we weren't going to see anything, froze. Shut off all the power in the Riverwood Forest subdivision across the street. They had no gas because everything froze underground. Everything was moved up into the cabinetry it's in now. Okay, you know, I can live with that. But now we're going to take this thing and we want to put vinyl fences all around it in kind of reminiscent of Jackson Prison. I mean, we're going to go all the way around here. And first of all, my question is security. And then I say, well, what am I living next to? I mean, we haven't had any security issues in almost 40 years it's been there. I understand that, you know, people make suggestions, MBSC and all that stuff, but they really looked at this? Is there really a fear that there's something going to happen here? I can go over there, and as I say, I like consumers, but everything is unlocked. I mean, I can flip the cabinets up myself and see electrical outlets and switches. I'm like, wow. Okay, well, we're worried about security. Well, a little lock might start. A good thing. There are other ways that this can be done that will not look like a gas substation that somebody's put this horrible fence around and then a plastic building in there. I don't have much of a problem with the building. If they feel they want a building and they need it there, there's ways to do it that can look nice. In the front of it, it could be bermed, as I bermed my property. I have 900 feet of berm in the front. That keeps everybody out of there. There could be a gate on the property. If you see the letter here, the property was supposed to have a gate on it. They never did that either. So what I'm asking, and I had a chance to talk to Mr. Scott, and I'd just like to talk to them and adjourn this matter so I can go and sit down with them, because I don't think, I want to get whatever they need done. And of course, I'm always concerned about security too, but I don't think an 8-foot plastic fence is going to give a lot of security to this place. And worrying about exits and getting off of there and leaving the back, I'll give you an easement. I'll give you whatever you want to run out the back of the building. The property sits 25 feet on the gas line.
If you could make sure you speak in the microphone, sir.
Okay, the property sits 25 feet onto the gas line. So we're never going to build anything there anyway. So theoretically, you could put an exit right there and blow out the easement. I'll give you an easement, whatever you need. But I just think I'd like some time to work with them, and I will. And we'll get something worked out, maybe by the use of a berm, or soften the effect of this. Because this is really going to be something driving down Romeo Plank Road. You're going to see all this white vinyl all the way out to the road? Really? What do you need that for? You've never needed it before. I mean, they've never had consumers that's ever had a need for that. They pull in. And now they want to put the whole thing in this white vinyl stuff. You probably wouldn't let me do that to my house because it looks like hell. So if I could have an opportunity to work with him, I know they want to make progress. Everybody wants to get their job done. I don't quite understand how the planning commission works into this now, but I'm here to ask for an adjournment, allow me to talk to Mr. Scott, and I'll do everything I can to help them get what they need. Or deny it, in the alternative. Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none and without objection, I'm going to close the public comment and bring it back to the board. I did just want to clarify with Mr. Box, this is now a little bit clearer to me. Can you briefly go over the difference between the site plan, the variance requests, and where we have adjourned and where we haven't at this point?
Sure. So they applied for a site plan with a special land use, I believe, which required an advertisement in the newspaper. And then that site plan can't be approved until they get these variances approved. The site plan was actually supposed to go to Planning Commission last month. Had it gone to Planning Commission and had the Planning Commission chosen to approve it, it would have been approved conditioned on the fact that these get approved tonight. If they were then denied tonight, then that was also denied. There was an issue with the publication in the newspaper, so it had to be re-advertised, so that's why the Planning Commission portion, the site plan, special land use, was delayed until now after the zoning board meeting. We don't have any requirements about which order you have to go in, Planning Commission first or zoning board first. I guess personally, I think it's better to go to the zoning board first, so it's actually working out better, in my opinion, that they're here first than the Planning Commission.
Okay. And then just for clarification, the site plan would be the drawing and the layout of the site.
Correct.
Which gets approved as a matter of zoning, and then the zoning board of appeals here is looking at where the site plan might deviate from the ordinance and determining whether or not there should be a variance granted.
That's correct.
Okay. Very good. All right. I did have a question for Mr. Orlando as well. I know before we have had several other site plans and I believe a variance request with regards to a public utility. And I know we've generally been told there are some things we can do and some things we can't do. Is there anything we should be aware of with regards to this request of lines that we cannot cross that might be different from a, I'll say, standard request? Is there anything we should be aware of?
No, not for these requests.
Okay, so we have the standing, we have the leeway, we can grant or deny within our rights at this point.
Correct. You just have to address them individually.
Okay, very good. All right, with that being said, is there any other questions from the board?
I have a follow-up.
Go ahead, Mr. DeBruin.
Given Mr. Nichols' comments, I guess my question is, the fact that this little substation or this pressurization station has been there for so many years the way it is there an urgency or is there a time frame that you wish to get this work done before?
Well, actually, yes, there is. Consumers is in a process of updating all their utilities. I mean, this is a fairly old facility, and right now it is scheduled to commence work on it September 1st, basically, and we have a scheduled outage with the Public Service Commission. It starts September 1st and ends, I believe it's October 30th. So we basically have, when we do this work, basically we provide gas. This site will be taken offline and we provide gas from other locations. Obviously, you want to do that during the summer months when the gas demand is low. So we're kind of limited on when we can do that. If we were, honestly, with the hiccup, with the advertising, we're tight in our window to hit that September 1st anyways. And so if we were delayed another month, there's no way we could do this work this year on that, so.
Very good. I did have an additional question. To me, obviously, our normal standard, I'm sure you know this, with a practical or with a variance is a practical difficulty. And it's pretty clear to me on the side setbacks, the rear setback. It's not as clear to me on the fence, on a 6-foot versus an 8-foot fence. And obviously, you did mention some of the guidelines that you have, but it's not clear to me why it's more secure or where we are looking to determine it's more secure. Do you have any other information there that you can provide us that helps us with that particular question?
I don't have anything with me tonight on that as far as the guidelines, as far as the MPSC guidelines and stuff on that, other than basically the 8-foot fence is the recommended standard height for these type of facilities. Typically, they, in the standard is actually a 7-foot chain link fence with a foot of barbed wire. Obviously, barbed wire doesn't work in this community. We're not even proposing that in that location. And so, you know, normally we would come in with the chain link fence. obviously, we sat down with the planning department and stuff, and they said, yeah, chain link just, we'd like to see something better than that. So that's why we came in with the, with the vinyl fence. And I guess a little clarification, this is not a standard vinyl fence like you'd buy at Home Depot or something. It is a commercial grade vinyl fence. To get the extra 2 foot, it's reinforced and stuff on that as well. The other thing I'd like to point out is everything in the front yard would be the ornamental, the aluminum ornamental, kind of like the picket type fence on that too. So that because we want the site to be visible from the road, to be able to, so that if somebody's driving by and sees somebody in there, number one, they could make a call, or if they see something that doesn't look right, they can make a call as well, so.
Understood. If this board was to deny the 8-foot fence, what do you have a path for? What would you do with that?
I don't know that. Actually, I guess that's the thing. I mean, that's, we really need it to be fenced, I guess is what it comes down to. It needs to have some type of fence on that. Again, the 8 foot is the standard height. I'm not sure if that's something, I mean, if there's something different you guys are looking for, different material.
Considerations, it's just if there is a practical difficulty that justifies it in this case, so.
And I guess, you know, the allowable 6 foot is just, I mean, obviously we know people can scale the 6 foot. You can scale the 8 foot as well, but it just provides more security. You know, as far as being able to get over that 8 foot is going to be more difficult to be able to, you know, I guess a little more challenging for people to.
Okay. All right, very good. I appreciate it. Any other questions from the board?
One quick question. Is this not zoned residential? Is that why the rear setback is not typically 50 feet?
You know, I don't have that in front of me. I believe it is.
Is that a typical rear yard setback, 50 feet? Or I guess.
That's
for
not a
residential.
typical rear yard setback for residential. It would be 25 feet. Yeah, it is zoned R1.
Were there any, Mr. Box, were there any provisions made? Was it established as a special land use, and provisions may have been made at that time?
It could be relating to that back when it was first developed, and I apologize, I don't have that information in front of me. Yes.
Any other questions? If none, I would entertain motions. And I think we should, as I believe Mr. Orlando alluded to, take these as 5 individual requests. Actually, I do want to speak to one thing before we move forward. I know there was a request during the public portion to postpone this request. Obviously, if there was a motion that was brought forward, we can entertain it, vote on it. I am not looking for one at this time, principally because the request that's being made of us here, while I can understand the individual's comments, our question is there a practical difficulty that warrants a variance? And I believe that question would be asked whether or not there's a plan modification or not. And so I can appreciate the difficulty, but it's something that is essentially a neighbor consideration that doesn't really affect the questions that we are trying to answer. So unless Mr. Orlando has a different opinion at this time, I'm not going to be entertaining a motion for postponement on this issue, just because it's not germane to the question we have this evening. So I just wanted to make sure that I clarified that on the record, and I'm sure Mr. Orlando or Mr. Box could talk to you about that after we're done. So.
Yeah, I would add as well,
Yeah,
you
Mr.
know,
Box.
for example, if you were to approve these variances and the fence, and I certainly understand they don't want a fence there, just because you approve this doesn't mean they have to go out and then build a fence. They can still speak with consumers and come up with another solution, but at the same time, they have a deadline. We don't want to slow them down. If they're ready to move forward with a decision, whether that's approve or deny, I think they have that right to ask for that this evening.
And I think it's pretty clear from the petitioner's comments tonight that they would like the question answered from our end. So I just wanted to make sure I put that out there on the record for you, why I was moving forward with that. All right, with that said, any motions on the reduced side yard setback of 17 feet from 25?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve 8A subsection 1, section 10.0704D2A to allow for a reduced side yard setback of 17 feet when 25 feet is required. And I would like to cite the odd lot shape for the practical difficulty.
Motion by Mr. DeBruin, is there support? I'll support that motion. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Mr. DeCoster.
Yes.
Mr. DeBruin is a yes. Mr. Piper.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzara.
Yes.
Mr. Tuckfield.
Yes.
That motion passes.
Any motions with regards to 8A2? This would be from 50 to 31 on the rear yard.
Mr. Chairman, similarly, I would like to make a motion to approve the section section 10.0704D3A to allow for reduced rear yard setback of 31 feet when 50 is required, at the same criteria stated.
All right, is there any support for the motion?
Support.
Supported by Mr. DeCoster. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Mr. Mazzara?
Yes.
Mr. Piper?
Yes.
Mr. Tuckfield?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoster?
Yes.
And I am a yes. That motion also passes.
All right, the next request is with regards to 14-26D1A, with regards to a privacy fence of 8 feet when 6 is allowed. Is there any motions with regards to this request?
I'm feeling a bit chatty, but I would like to make a motion with 8A3 to deny section 14-26D1A to allow privacy fence at the height of 8 feet when a maximum height of 6 feet is allowed.
Is there support on the motion?
I will support that, Mr. Chairman.
Supported by Mr. Piper. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Mr. DeCoster?
No.
Mr. Mazzara?
Yes.
Mr. Piper?
Yes.
Mr. Tuckfield?
Yes.
And I am a yes. That motion passes.
All right, the next would be from section 1427A1 to allow a fence to be set back 1 foot south of the north property line when the fence is required to be located on the property line. Any motions with regards to this request?
Can I ask one question before?
Go ahead, Mr. DeCoster.
Maybe this is for Mr. Box. This is just on the north side?
So, yeah, I need to clarify that. So originally, when they first came in, they asked for a 1 foot, they wanted the fence to be 1 foot off the property line. And it does say on here, north property line, but it was a 1 foot, which would have covered the 3.5 on all the other ones as well. They were asking for 1 foot, essentially on all the sides. We have since worked with them. They've revised their plans. They no longer need the 1 foot on the north. They just need the 3.5 on the east and south sides.
Yeah.
And you said normally the 3.5 would be allowed if there was already a fence.
If there was
on the
already a
property.
fence there, but because there's not one already there, they need your approval.
All right, with regards to that item, is there any motions? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the request to vary from section 1427A1 to allow a fence to be located 3 feet. I believe Mr. Box was 3 feet?
3.5.
3.5 feet from the south property line and the east property line. This would be with regards to health, safety, and welfare on the location and allowing a egress from the property that could be maintained clear for safety egress. Is there support?
I will support that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by myself, supported by Mr. Piper. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Mr. DeBruin is a yes. Mr. DeCoster?
Yes.
Mr. Tuckfield?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzara?
Yes.
And Mr. Piper?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, and the last one would be from section 1427A3A, and this would be with regards to allowing a fence within the front yard. Is there any motions with regards to this item?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to allow the fence within the front yard on section 24-27A3A. I think as far as security purposes for this, I think there's a practical difficulty if we don't allow it on the front. So I would make the motion to accept that.
All right, motion by Mr. Piper. Is there support?
I'll support.
All right, supported by Mr. Mazzara. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Mr. Tuckfield,
Yes.
Mr. DeCoster,
Yes.
I am a no. Mr. Piper
Yes.
and Mr. Mazzara.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, very good. So I believe with regards to the first item, that variance passed. With regards to the second item, the rear setback, that variance passed. With regards to the third variance, with the 8-foot height, that variance was denied. With regards to the setback, that was passed, and with regards to the fence along the front yard, that was passed.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, that moves us on to item 8B. This is a variance to section 10.0311 EF3. This would be a request to install a pool within the allowed 10-foot distance from the from the structure. Mr. Box, please take us through this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. As you mentioned, this is a request to reduce the setback from the principal structure. A 10-foot setback is what's required. They're asking for 7 feet for the pool itself. So as you see here, they're looking to set it on the rear of the house, 7 feet from the principal structure. Our departments did look at it. The building department noted that it doesn't create any building code issues. It only violates the zoning ordinance. No other departments had any objections. Planning did point out that there's a 12-foot storm easement in the rear, but we did ask that the applicant provide a little bit more information as to whether the pool could be constructed at a different size, or more information about whether it's meeting the spirit of the ordinance. Regarding public safety, the backyard pool area will be enclosed by a 48-inch tall fence, which is required and screened with landscaping. And so the recommendation from staff is that although a 12-foot storm easement exists along the rear property line, we would ask that the applicant provide more information as to whether the pool could be constructed at a different size that respects the easement and the required 10-foot separation distance. I can answer any questions you may have. I will also point out, as you folks all know, Mr. Tuckfield had asked us before to look at this. We get this request quite often. This is something we're looking at revising in the updated ordinance. At this point, we don't have that exact number. It will likely be reduced from 10 feet, but I don't know reduced to what. But at this point, it is still 10 feet in the ordinance.
All right, very good. Any questions from the board?
I have one quick question.
Go ahead, Mr.
Mr. Bach, I know the 10-foot ordinances, they are actually, it's a safety concern, right? So
I think
my
it's-
question is going to 7 feet, I mean, would it still be
I
safe?
think it's twofold. It's a safety concern in that, you know, if the pool is too close, most people at the rear of their house is a sliding glass door. If someone were to trip and fall going out the sliding glass door, if the pool is too close, you're going to fall directly into the pool or down a stair and into a pool. That was one of the issues why I think, again, this 10-foot requirement was here in place before I was here, so I don't know exactly what was in their mind when they set this, but I think that was one of them. The other one is the pressure from the pool itself that it could impose on the structure of the home. If you start to get too close, all that water, it's very heavy, it could impact the structure of the house itself.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Piper, I think the last one that we heard potentially from multiple building department officials ago was the concern that residents would be jumping from the roof of the structure into the pool. And miss, I think, was the general concern. All right, any other questions?
I've done that.
Hearing none, I would look for the applicant. If the applicant is here, please come forward to the center table and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name's Joanne Avery, and my address is 49037 Monarch Drive.
All right, Ms. Avery, do you have any additional comments this evening?
Yes. As far as the pool goes, I did pick the smallest one with the amenities that I wanted. It has a shallow end and a deep end, a shallow end for kids to enjoy, and a deep end for me to do exercise in. And this was the smallest pool with those amenities in it.
Okay.
And with the drain easement in back, we couldn't move back farther. So that's why I'm requesting this variance.
All right. Any questions from the board to the petitioner? I did have one.
Okay.
With regards to the right-left orientation. Had you considered moving it any further to the south or to the left side of the parcel? And if so, what was your thought process there?
I did not consider that. It's already off from the door that goes outside. It's not directly in front of it. I'll have a patio there.
Okay.
No, I did not. I worked with Rock Solid, and they came up with this design.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Hearing none, I would open up this item to the public. If there's anyone that wishes to speak on this request, please come forward to the microphone. State your name and address for the record, and I should make sure that I remember this time, because I didn't last time. We do generally keep a 4-minute time limit on any question or any comments. Anybody wish to speak on this request?
Hi, my name is Zaman Askar, and I'm a resident of 49005 Monarch Drive. I'm her neighbor, the first house. When you enter the subdivision, I'm the first on the left, and she's the second. And we have about 4 houses that facing the pond on the left side, which is west side. And I just know about this meeting a few days ago, and I was on vacation, and I remember my wife reminded me about this one. I didn't come here to object it. She's my neighbor. She's my lovely neighbor. We have a good relationship. But I would like to speak about it, my concern for in general, any structure or anything that could block my view. The point that I buy this house and I insist to get this lot because it has a pond beyond it, and I pay $500,000 to enjoy the view. The view has view the pond and the other pond beyond it, and the pond started from my house going north all the way to the 4th house. So if you look at that map, it go from left all the way to the 4th house and continue. They put a fountain over there, and that's a very nice feature. So in the morning and in the evening, me and my family, we sit down in the backyard and we enjoy that, the view. And I would like not to have any structure or any structure that obstruct or impede my vision or my view to the pond or to the fountain. Now, if I look at the fountain, her backyard and other backyard will be between my point and that fountain, which is right now empty. So having anything else like a pool, fine. I mean, I'm not going to object the pool, but my concern is about other things related to the pool, which is the fence. How high is the fence? What kind of a fence? Vegetation or the greenery area around it, because we have a similar neighborhood that he built the pool over in the same subdivision. And I go by walking over there, and I saw that he put a high fence, and the trees over there or the shrubs about 5-6 high. So that's my concern. I mean, I just would like not to have anything that will block my vision to the fountain or to that one. The other point that the letter says that about the 7 feet or 10 feet, I'm not sure about it, how much is going to affect on me or my house. I would like to push any structure away from my house as much as I can. And I'm an architectural designer too. When we do this kind of plans, we always comply with the code. If it's better to comply with the code, with the 10 feet is better, I don't know. But my concern is about the type of greenery that with the fence or how high is the fence, if we can go with the low as we can, or to make sure that the greenery will be as low as we can do that one. Other than that, I'm with her for the project. We have a good relationship and will support her for that project.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, without any objection, I'm going to close the public portion, bring it back to the board for any further questions, comments, or motions.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Mr. DeBoer.
If I understand correctly, Monarch Estates are detached condos. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So all regular zoning ordinances apply though, right? Correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I know those, they sit a little, the houses sit a little close together, and I didn't know whether different rules applied.
I did get HOA approval already on the design.
Any other questions, comments, or motions?
I'll make a motion, my
Mr.
motion would be,
Oh, Mr. Coster, sorry.
my
Wrong
motion would
side.
be to approve the variance request under section 10.0311 F3, and that's to request a pool to be installed 7 feet for the principal structure when 10 feet is required. And that's based on the practical difficulty due to the sewer easement at the back of the property.
Motion by Mr. DeCoster. Is there any support?
I would support that.
Supported by Mr. DeBruin. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Mr. DeCoster?
Yes.
Mr. Tuckfield?
Yes.
Mr. Piper?
Yes?
I am a yes. Mr. Mazzara?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, that variance is granted. Thank you very much for coming in. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, that moves us on to item 9, which is public comments for non-agenda items. Is there any members of the public who wish to speak? If so, please come to the podium. You have up to 4 minutes for any items you wanted to speak on this evening. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comments and move on to ZBA member comments. Anybody have any comments this evening?
Real quick one. I
Go ahead.
wish Mr. Nichols had stayed a little longer, because I'd like to talk to him, being that I'm on the Historical Commission.
Of course, yeah.
I'd love to know a little bit more about his property. Yeah. Having said that, I did notice, I was here yesterday, and I noticed they're coming along with the original Township Hall. The sign is up there. We're making progress. I talked to Treasurer Dolette. They're hoping that we'll at least be in there by the Christmas lighting ceremony to have Santa pay a visit there, that he's already been invited to come. So we're hoping to have it open to the public, even though it won't be completely renovated by then, but we're hoping to have it open by then for that festivity. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Piper. Any other comments? I just wanted to mention one. I believe Mr. Box welcomed a new member of his family within the last couple of weeks, so I just wanted to pass along congratulations to him and his wife.
Thank you.
Glad everybody is doing good, and yeah, congratulations. All right, with that, it is Planning Director comments. Mr. Box, do you have anything for us this evening?
Just to note that there is a meeting in August. I believe it's August 1st. We already have 3 agenda items for that, and we had 2 other folks approach us this week about potentially applying. If we get those applications tomorrow, they will also be added to that. So it could be potentially a
busy
long
one.
meeting.
Ooh.
If they don't apply by tomorrow, they're on the September meeting. So
Thinking this might be the meeting for Mr. DeCoster to chair for the year. That's what I'm hearing.
and that's it.
All right, very good. Mr. Orlando, any comments from you this
I have
evening?
no comments.
All right. I actually did have one other thing that I wanted to mention. We had a couple of items tonight with loan dissents. I've long held the record for the most loan dissents in recent past. I just want to say I'm pretty proud of this board. I think we've meshed together. We've had some pretty good discussion. We've had disagreements, but I think it's been pretty healthy, and I'm glad to see everybody's able to think through the items, and we're able to disagree and get those things put out there, but also come to agreement on other stuff. So just appreciate everybody's hard work, and yeah, glad to be on the board with all of us. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. DeBruin. Is there support?
I'll support.
Supported by Mr. Mazzara. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying nay. At, let me verify the time, 7:19, we stand adjourned.